Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am so happy that you've joined us. This is our virtual segment entitled Let's Talk Wealth. And it is the second in the series of events that we're hosting for both the Jamaican diaspora in New York, as well as prospective clients. So as many of you would know, we were in New York less than 2 weeks ago, March 22nd to be specific, where we had wealth and cocktails, and we had the opportunity to meet many of you. I must say a special thank you to the Consulate General of Jamaica, who hosted this session for us at their brand new location, and it was amazing. So I'm sure many of you brought along a friend tonight virtually to come and meet the team, as well as to hear from our distinguished speaker, Mr. Michael Leachin. Let me quickly introduce to you the members of the NCB team that are on tonight, who at some point will be fielding questions that you may have that you will post via the chat or via the Q&A section. So, of course, we have the Honorable Michael Leachin, the chairman of the NCB Financial Group. We have Ms. Maureen Denton, the chief of staff to the chairman. We have with us as well Audrey McIntosh. She's the head of private banking for NCB Jamaica. We have Ms. Kimberly Martin, Assistant Vice President Corporate Solutions in NCB Capital Markets. And of course, myself, Dr. Karrian Hepburn-Malcolm, the head of wealth. So without further ado, we are going to launch into a video that many of you would have seen, but I know you wanted more time to digest the video, and there are many of you who have not seen the video, and we definitely think it's worth showing again. So have a watch, and then we'll hear from the chairman. So this is the video of Roxroy Carr, our very own testimonial. As the chairman would say, nobody else can, have the bragging rights to this. This isn't something that we can make up. Here we go.
You have to stay away from gambling, rum drinking, only per woman. Those things will keep you poor.
In the early 2000s, 2002 exactly, I went to Half Moon.
Hours before he checked in the hotel, we had a burst water pipe.
He's the one who fixed the plumbing issue. So then I started asking him about his own aspirations as a person, right? So we talked a little bit about his future.
What struck me the most about him, he was so humble, easy to talk to, and had so much. We talked for about an hour about various things: money, wealth, life, health.
Most of us don't really think about creating wealth, but all of us should think about creating wealth, because it is available to all of us once we understand the principles behind creating wealth.
I was born at Barrytown. I'm an only child, only grandchild, only great-grandchild. I've been lucky from birth. I was breech.
So you never born as a gold little spoon?
No. My grandmother, she used to do iglaring in the market, and Saturdays I would take out, because we had a lot of fruits on the property.
Yes.
So I'd take out her kneesberry and her ackee to meet the bus. I wanted to get rich. So I from earlier on, I was wondering how rich people get rich. They either provide goods or service. So I asked him, how?
To create wealth, you have to start by emulating, identifying a role model. And we spoke about who my role model was at the time, and still is, Mr. Warren Buffett. So I basically introduced Roxroy to Mr. Buffett, Mr. Warren Buffett, and the principles that Mr. Buffett has employed to create his own wealth, and what has inspired me to become his acolyte, and therefore I was inspiring Roxroy to identify a role model, the best investor in the world, and to follow his ways.
After meeting Mr. Leachin, that inspired me to branch out and to have something on the side. Because being a mentor, I follow his example. One of the investment that he encouraged me to to take on was to invest in AIC. And surprisingly enough, in 2008, when the financial meltdown, I didn't pull out the money. It stick, and it way past that now.
None of us is an island unto him or herself. All of us, we're standing on someone else's shoulders, right? Or forebears, or maybe people who are around us. None of us became the success or the person that we are because of only what we did. So therefore, once we recognize that, it should be an imperative that if we're standing on someone else's shoulders, we have to allow other people to stand on our shoulders. I know you're a caring person. You care because that's what I saw in you.
The school year starts in September. I usually buy books and pencils and so forth and give out. And at Christmas time, I usually go into the shut-in and give them food items. But since the COVID, I've done the books, but I still visit the shut-ins, and I try not to give them too much food items because some are diabetic and so on. So I prefer give them money. Sometimes when you give back to something, especially and they keep on telling you thanks, when you walk through the gate, you can't see because water full your eye. You know, it's really a good feeling.
What would you say to young people today?
Work hard. Save at least 15% of your money. Don't expect anything overnight, because easy come, easy go. And as soon as you save your money and it reaches a certain amount, invest it and you'll get a bigger return. I want for my 5 kids, I want everybody to get a university education. For my 5 kids, everybody to get a university education. I want to leave everybody with at least 2 rental properties. But they have to be independent. Make something of their life on their own, because before I hand over anything to them. Since I met Mr. Leachin, my life has changed for the better. I'm so grateful to him for his advice, for inspiring me to be what I am today. I thank him so much. Anytime you come to Montego Bay, somebody is always saying to me, Mr. Leachin, I call you. Your boss there, you know. So that kind of make me feel, you know, good to know that somebody of his status and stature have me in his mind. I have no regret meeting Mr. Leachin, and I wouldn't change NCB for any other bank.
Wasn't that inspiring? The amazing thing about that story is that if Mr. Roxroy Carr, the plumber who was hovering around the poverty line, can be a multi-millionaire US dollars, many of us have no excuse, you know. Anyway, without further ado, let me introduce to you Mr. Michael Leachin OJ, who hardly needs an introduction. He has been a key figure in Jamaica, and I dare say the global financial landscape for over 2 decades. Renowned philanthropist, astute businessman, and regional visionary. This evening, however, I think one of the most apt descriptors might be client advocate or customer champion. Let's welcome Group Chairman for the NCB Financial Group Limited, Mr. Michael Leachin.
Thank you very much, Karrian. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for being here. And so, you know, I was in New York it would have been about 2010, 2000. And I was being given an award. It may have been early, actually. Time just flies. I was being given an award by the Abyssinian Baptist Church out of Harlem. So the Reverend Calvin Butts, in the awards ceremony, you know, he said, you know, over the last 40 years, there has only been one high school built in Harlem. And it wasn't built by the federal government. It wasn't built by the state government. It wasn't built by the municipal government. It was built by the Abyssinian Baptist Church. So, the Abyssinian Baptist Church has been at the epicenter of the gentrification of Harlem ever since. And now that Harlem is gentrified, we have a problem. The problem is real estate price has gone up 10 times in the last 10 years, and the local Harlemites can no longer afford to live in Harlem because the wider community has moved in. So when I heard that, I thought, my gosh, I got scared actually. When I heard, I thought, we are working diligently to gentrify Jamaica. And this is a microcosm of what's going to happen. Real estate price will go up manyfold. And by the way, the local Harlemites, they didn't participate in the wealth because they were not traditional owners of assets. They rented. So that is what scared me, because I thought, we're working hard to gentrify Jamaica. Jamaica is going to be gentrified because we're so resolute. And once gentrification occurs, the wider community, global community, will move into Jamaica and displace the Jamaicans, us, because we're not historically asset owners. So I got scared. And I said to myself, every time I go to Jamaica, I'm going to make sure I talk about wealth creation and the principles of wealth creation, because it is not the purview of only some people. It's available to everybody once you understand the principles behind wealth creation. So let's talk about the principles behind wealth creation. But before that, I think there's a slide that really puts NCB in perspective. Could you put that slide up, please? It shows NCB versus the next 8 companies in Jamaica. So what this slide is saying, to give you a perspective of who NCB is. NCB matches the strength as measured by assets of the top 8 companies in Jamaica combined. We have $2.2 trillion in assets. It takes the next 8 Jamaican companies to equal that. So that puts things in perspective as to who NCB really is. So let's get back to how is wealth created. Well, I started off, I'm a civil engineer by training, but I started off in Canada as I started off in Jamaica, having graduated from Canadian University with an engineering degree. And after 2 years, I went back to Canada. I couldn't get a job as an engineer. So I had 3 non-engineering job offers. The first one was to be a soap salesman. The second one was to be a long-haul truck driver. And the third one was to sell mutual funds. So I opted for the third. So being a young Jamaican guy, 26 years old, being an immigrant, not knowing anyone with money, but I had to sell securities to people with money. I had to cold call, knock on doors. So when someone said, okay, Mike, you can come and see me. When I got to their home, before I rang the bell, I asked myself the question, just to become situationally aware. What's the highest value add I can give to this family here tonight? What's that one thing that if I do for them, it will transform their life? What's the highest value add? And the answer kept coming back, Mike, make them wealthy. So I thought, whoa, that being the case, is there a formula that you practice consistently? The only outcome is wealth. Because if there's such a formula, I want to know what that formula is. So, question, guys, is there a formula that if you practice consistently, the only outcome is wealth? That was the code I had to crack when I was 26 years old. And I eventually figured it out. I figured, so let us go through an exercise here. Think of any wealthy person anywhere in the world. Just think of one. And I'm going to describe, first, starting off with the 5 things that that person did to become wealthy. And then secondly, the 10 characteristics of the business that that person owned to have become wealthy. And I have to get it 5 plus 10 right. 100%. Because when we talk about what my aspiration was to distill wealth creation down to a formula. So I could replicate it. I could replicate it and teach it. But most importantly, be the role model for it. So when you think about, well, is there a formula for creating wealth? You Google Michael Leach and you Google the 5 laws, it will come up. Okay? So let's talk about the 5 laws of wealth creation. Think about that person who, could you go back to the slide deck, please? And just keep it on the slide deck. Yeah, think about that person, any person who has created wealth. And I suggest to you that that person created wealth by, remember, I'm going to have to get it 5 out of 5 right. Owning a few high quality businesses. Secondly, those few businesses, that person thoroughly understands them. Thirdly, that person, those businesses are domiciled in strong long-term growth industries. Fourthly, that person has used other people's money to have created the wealth. And lastly, that person's attitude towards ownership is, I'll hold these few businesses for as long as number 1 condition remains intact, number 2 condition remain intact, number 3 condition remain intact, number 4 condition remain intact. I'll just hold these businesses intergenerationally if necessary. That's how wealth is created. This, by the way, is what investing is all about. And I could distill investing down to one word, actually. We go to item number 2. Own things that you understand. So guys, if you want to create wealth, you have to make sure that you're on side of these 5 laws. So if you own stocks, make sure they're on side of these 5 laws. Okay, next slide, please. I'm going to talk now a little bit about yes, that's the one. The qualities of the business that person you're thinking of owns. Firstly, that business is run by an owner operator. And remember, I got 5 out of 5 right, I'm sure. And I know I have to get 10 out of 10 right. Secondly, the ownership of that business is heavily concentrated in the hands of a few people. Thirdly, there's personal identification between the business and the owner and the business. It's interchangeable. You think of Apple, whose face comes to mind? Steve Jobs. You think of Steve Jobs, which business comes to mind? Apple. Fourthly, that business that is owned by the person you're thinking of, decision making is not done in a democratic manner. It's done more like in an autocratic manner. Management style will be described as entrepreneurial, and there's low turnover of management. So those are the first 6 qualities. Periodically, that business has to make a capital allocation decision. It makes a profit. What do I do with the profit? I can buy a plant, equipment, or another company. If it's a good decision, management, the owners, the shareholders' net worth increases. If it's a bad decision, the shareholders' net worth decreases. In other words, the risk reward for making capital allocation decisions for that wealth creating business is what we call symmetrical. It's tantamount to flip a coin, heads you win, tails you lose. Number 8, the time horizon that for ownership is long-term. Number 9, the focus of the board is singular. Growth, growth, growth. And number 10, validation of success is a function of customer satisfaction, sales growth, market share, margins, etc. So those are the 10 qualities of wealth-creating businesses. And I'm confident that those are the 10 qualities of the business that is owned by the person you're thinking of when I said think of any wealthy person. So guys, what do you conclude from that? Whenever you invest, the 5 laws should determine your behavior. And the next 10 characteristics should be the characteristics of the business or the businesses that you want to own. So now, let us look at what most people do. Now that we have a framework on a private business, it could be wealth-creating business. Let's look at your typical public company, any typical public company, or most. You think AT&T, on the public business, whereby the wealth-creating business is run by an owner-operator. In your typical public company, there's a separation between management and the shareholders, between the operators and the owners. Separation. And because there's a separation, shareholders don't run a business, but shareholders need to have confidence that the business is being properly run. So they now impose a corporate governance structure, starting with the board of directors, to oversee management. But who are these board members? Are they owners? Not necessarily. Do they have to pass a fit and proper test to become board members? Not necessarily. They can be an ex-doctor or doctor, lawyer, Indian chief. Nothing to do with creating successful businesses. They don't have to have that pedigree. The point is, board members are agents of shareholders. They don't have to be shareholders, so they're not necessarily owners. And right off the bat, you introduce what we call the principal agent problem. The difference between how owners do things and how the agents of owners they do things. That's called the principal agent problem. So right off the bat, you have a set of agents, the directors overseeing other agents. You have principal agent problem squared. Big problem, right off the bat. Secondly, where in a wealth-creating business, there's heavy concentration of ownership. In your typical public company, ownership is broadly dispersed, exact opposite. Personal identification, anonymous. Put a face to Coca-Cola or AT&T, you can't. Business management style, autocratic in your wealth-creating business. In your public company, your typical stock, traded on exchange, it's a perfect democracy. In the board, a decision comes to the board, they vote, they say, those who say yes, put their hand up. Those who say no, put their hand down. Count up yeses minus no's. If it's positive, it goes through. Perfect democracy. Exact opposite of what happens in wealth-creating businesses. Management style could be described as entrepreneurial in a typical public company, bureaucratic. Low turnover, high turnover. Exact opposite. In your typical public company, the average tenure of the CEO of a private business is 20, 25 years. In your typical public company, it's 5 years, less than 5 years. Management risk reward, where it was symmetrical. In your typical public company, it is asymmetrical. What do I mean by that? Well, when management and the board get together to make a capital allocation decision, if it's a good decision, management gets a bonus. If it's a bad decision, management gets half the bonus. If it's a really ugly decision, management gets a golden parachute. It's tantamount to flip a coin. Heads, management wins. Tails, management does not lose. So if I say to you, guys, here are the odds. Go to Las Vegas. Heads you win, tails you don't lose. What are you going to do? Aren't you going to just go for it? Of course. Time horizon, long term for wealth creating businesses, short term. Typical public company, short, quarterly. Board focus, growth, growth, growth. Typical public company, focus on the board, risk and compliance. Validation of success, typical wealth creating business, customer satisfaction, etc., etc. Public company, daily stock price, mark to market. So guys, how is it possible that if the attributes under the right-hand column, which is entitled public business, are the exact opposite to the attributes of wealth-creating businesses. How is it possible to create wealth by doing the opposite of how wealth is created in the business that is owned by the person you're thinking of? How is that possible? So you see, if your behavior isn't governed by a framework, and the framework in this case for owning companies is defined under the column private business. If you are not steeped in those 10 qualities, you're going to be arbitrary, and most likely you're going to buy businesses willy-nilly under public business column. So I'm not saying you shouldn't buy public companies. I'm saying any business, public or private, you buy, they should have those qualities of wealth-creating businesses. And there are some public companies that do have those qualities, and it's for you to search them out. But that's where you're going to protect your capital. Okay, so what's the score, guys? I said I'm going to tell you 10 characteristics of the business that is owned by the person that you're thinking about. And that's 10, plus I told you the 5 characteristics of that person as an investor that you're thinking about. So what's the score now? 15 out of 15. Next slide, please. In addition to that, practice what we call the 3 Ps. That person you're thinking of predicted something, or they had some view of the world, they planned for that prediction, and they persevered with their plan. That's how wealth is created.
Essentially, the wealth division is geared at wealth creation versus wealth management. I make that distinction because when you think wealth management, it sounds passive, it sounds stagnant, it sounds like we're merely managing, that which you already own. While wealth creation, as it rightfully sounds, is more active, more proactive, and it's meant to encompass all areas of your financial life. So essentially, what we've been doing is ensuring that each client that we interact with, whether it be an individual or an institution, we are having a needs-based discussion with the customer to figure out, do they have, savings needs? Do they have credit needs? Is it that they're looking at growth, income generation, tax minimization, protection? Do they need a pension? And essentially, we bring all the experts to the table to assist that individual or that entity in achieving their financial goals. So it's different as to what obtains traditionally, where, for example, if you go to corporate banking as an entity and you wanted to get a loan, and for whatever reason you don't meet the lending criteria, we wouldn't be showing you the door. Instead, we would bring in our cap markets partners, for example, to look at some creative ways that we could try and source the funding for you. And I have Kimberly Martin here on the call, who could give you some more information about some of the ways that cap markets, is able to assist our corporate entities or our individuals for that matter.
So let me give you some examples of predict, plan, and persevere. In 1982, and I said demographics is a very good predictor of human behavior. So in 1982, I was 31 years old, and I'm a member of the baby boomer cohort. People were born between 1946 and 1964. So in 82, 83, I thought, what? And we are the largest cohort in North America, baby boomers. So whatever the baby boomers do, there goes the economy. So in 1983, I thought, what are baby boomers doing today? Well, I'm 32, I'm right the median age. So, and we are all consuming, we're setting up home, buying furniture, fridge, stove, cars, etc. So when you aggregate the largest percentage of the North American population doing the same thing, I concluded we're in a consumption boom. But you don't create wealth by investing today what everybody else is doing today. You create wealth by investing today what people will be doing in the future. You predict. So I thought, okay, What will baby boomers be doing 10 years from now? Well, they will be, I'll be 30, 42 then. Median age of the baby boomer cohort, we'll all wake up one day and say, wow, I haven't been saving enough. I've been consuming. Retirement is coming up in 23 years. We're all going to get hyper and start saving and investing. So there's a saving, investing boom coming. So I'd better make sure, that's a prediction, I better make sure that I plan for it and I persevere with my plan. Hold on there. So so what I did, I bought shares. There are a few ways in which you could do that. You can invest in, if you think there's a big saving and investing boom coming along, you can invest in shares of a bank. But that's not the bullseye, because you can get loan losses. Or you can invest in shares in an insurance company. That too is not the bullseye, because you can get underwriting losses. Or you can buy into wealth management companies, which is what I did. So I bought into this company called Mackenzie Financial Corporation, publicly traded company in Canada, went out on board $500,000, bought the shares at $1 per share in 1983. 4 years later, in 1987, it was $7 per share. So the $1, the 500,000 became 3.5 million. In 87, I thought, wow, I should start a fund that does this. So I started the AIC Advantage Fund with 800,000. 12 years later, we had $15 billion in that fund. We're the largest, it became the largest privately owned mutual fund company in Canada. We were managing money for 1 million Canadians. Okay, so that's predict, plan, and persevere. So today, what's relevant today? So what are we predicting today? Well, two things. We're predicting that as the going back to demographics again, as people age, they're more likely to demand healthcare services. So we're in the early innings of a healthcare boom. But unfortunately, when you age, the likelihood of getting cancer is also increased. So unfortunately, we're in an era whereby there is an oncology boom in cancer. And when you think about the modality for treating cancer, modalities for treating cancer, there are two modalities that come to mind. External beam radiation, which fries your body, and chemotherapy, which poisons your body. And those have been around for 90 years. They're brutal and blunt instruments. So what is gonna today disrupt both of them is called TRT, targeted radionuclide therapy. And if you have never heard of this before, write it down and Google it. Targeted, because this is how cancer is now being treated. And it's humane. And what it is, it's targeted. Therefore, it goes straight to the cells that are infected. It's targeted radionuclide. We take a radioisotope and zap the cancer, right? So that's targeted and zap only the cancerous cells. So no side effects. It's just an outpatient treatment. You take 4 infusions, and if you qualify for treatments, and that's it. So today there are 2 drugs that are in the marketplace. The first is, and both by Novartis. The first is called Lutathera, which is relevant to what they call GEP-NET, which is gastroenteropancreatic neuroendocrine tumors. And the second is pertaining to prostate cancer, again by Novartis. It's called Pluvicto. So I invested in a company, you can Google this also, in 2018, 6 years ago now, 5.5 years ago. It's out of Germany, and it's called ITM, Isotope Technologies Munich. If you Google ITM Munich, go to the company, then supervisory board. You'll see this Jamaican guy sitting in the midst of German board members. I'm a member of the supervisory board. And this business, ITM, we have invested over 225 million euro in this business. My clients, friends, and family. And it is at the heart of TRT. We supply Novartis with all the their lutetium-177, which is the primary ingredient drug, into their blockbuster drug, Pluvicto, which is a prostate cancer treating drug. And today, the hottest aspect of the biotech industry is TRT, targeted radionuclide therapy. But we have been in it now for 5-6 years. So that's an example of predict. In this case, the prediction is there's going to be a lot more cancer in it tomorrow than today, next day than et cetera. We plan and we're persevering, etc. The second prediction that we're making, and these are not really esoteric or long shot prediction. We're highly confident that they're gonna we're right. The second prediction is the following. Most countries in 2015, which was COP28, signed up to be carbon net zero by 2050. But, so we know that countries are going, because if we don't, there's an existential threat to mankind based on the fuels that we're now using as primary source. And the fuel mix of most countries today, all countries today, would be depicted by what we call the hub and spoke model. At the hub, the center, you have fossil fuels. The spokes, renewables, hydro, wind, solar, etc. And the hub provides base load. Solar is intermittent. Sun doesn't shine at night. Wind is also intermittent. So you need a base load, which is at the hub, providing high dense, continuous, always on fuel, and it's scalable. Okay? That's at the hub of every single country, their energy mix. But fossil fuels are dirty. So they're creating all sorts of issues for mankind. And if we don't change that energy mix, it's an existential threat. We all know that. So what's the energy mix of the future? Well, the fossil fuels will remain, the renewables will remain as the spokes. But at the center, we are changing from fossil fuels to another source that has similar qualities, always on, highly scalable, and energy dense, but clean. And the only such source of energy is nuclear. But the new nuclear energy generator will not be those gigawatt nuclear plants. They'll come in the form of small modular reactors or micro modular reactors, miniaturized, which can be made in factories and rolled out, thousands of them, because we're going to need it. So that's what the energy mix of the future is going to look like. Nuclear at the center, and specifically, predominantly, small modular reactors, micro modular reactors, and the spokes remaining the same, renewables. So that's where we are investing today. So let's get back to Jamaica now. We're all Jamaicans here. And when I bought NCB in 2002, I'll tell you the reason I bought NCB. Because there are 3 preconditions. You can go back a few slides, you'll see them. 3 preconditions that were present. And we all need to make sure that these 3 preconditions are present whenever we invest. The first is there must be a difference between perception and reality. Secondly, there must be inefficiencies. And thirdly, there must be a lack of capital. So let's talk about the first in 2002. Perception versus reality. Most people wouldn't see Jamaica as an investment haven. They wouldn't. But guess what? Those people who are invested in Jamaica and they do business in Jamaica, if they took their business and elsewhere in the world, they would not necessarily do well. And a big example that really motivated me in 2002 was Scotiabank. Scotiabank went from Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada, to Kingston, Jamaica in 1888. Scotiabank went to Jamaica before it went to Toronto. It was its first foray outside of Halifax, Jamaica. So in 2002, Scotiabank then was in 50 countries. Scotiabank made 8% of its after-tax earnings from Jamaica. 8. Scotia International, which was in 49 countries, all countries except for Canada, Scotia International made 25% of its after-tax earnings from Jamaica. 25%. 2% Jamaica would represent 1 of 50, 2%, yet still it made 25% of Scotia's earnings in 2002. This is before they went to Latin America. So I thought, wow, there is a difference. Scotia, most people don't see Jamaica as an investment haven, but Scotia knows that where their bread is buttered, Jamaica. So because they're on the ground and they understand it. So there must be a difference between perception and reality. Scotia knew the reality of Jamaica, and that is what propelled me to go to Jamaica and buy the National Commercial Bank. Secondly, there are inefficiencies, and thirdly, there's a lack of capital. And by the way, guys, those 3 conditions are still alive and well. So the conditions that were alive and well then, the conditions that are prerequisite to create wealth are alive and well in Jamaica. So I would suggest to every Jamaican that don't overlook owning a piece of the rock, because you're going to do very well, as is the case that is now happening, because Jamaica is being gentrified. We have brought our debt to GDP down from 147% in 2013. Right now it's 75%. Jamaica is a role model for the IMF from 2013. You go to Jamaica, you see it's a big building boom happening in Jamaica. Montego Bay transformed over the last 3, 4, 5 years. Kingston is no different. So your acres of diamonds are in your backyard. Yardies. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Chairman. Well, we have questions already. So, Lerone Savage asks, given that success is not linear, are there any thoughts on the potential of the 5% in 4 years framework if Jamaica were to continue with the effort?
Well, Jamaica did not continue with the effort after COVID kiboshed it, and it was never rejuvenated after COVID. I was the chairman of the Economic Growth Council, and by the way, Maureen Denton, who is on the call here, she was the CEO of the Economic Growth Council. And it was really a wonderful endeavor. In 4 years, from 2016 to 2020, I'd go to Jamaica from Canada every other week. 4 years, I did 500 meetings, 500 meetings in 4 years. And it was disbanded. We didn't follow through after COVID. And it's really actually a shame, because we were holding the government, the bureaucrats, accountable for behavior. And every quarter, I took the job on from the Prime Minister, asked me to take the job on. I said, I'll take it on a one condition, that I be able to go on national TV every quarter and give a report as to how the progress, what milestones are being met, what milestones are not being met, and who is responsible for not meeting those milestones, which we did. So you Google EGC quarterly report, and you'll see me calling out. But that's what we need. We need accountability. We need ownership. And government doesn't have accountability because they don't have ownership. But that's what we need, and that's what the Economic Growth Council gave to Jamaica, and it was unique. So, but it was disbanded.
Well,
or it was just left to evaporate after COVID.
We have a participant asking if you plan on rejuvenating the 5 in 4.
I can't rejuvenate it. I have to be appointed. Someone has to be appointed. But I have to focus on my business in Jamaica, NCB, because that's the one we control. And that's the one we're going to make. We're going to make sure that that business, when you think about role models for how businesses are run, we're going to make sure that NCB is at top of the class in the world, period.
Agreed. All right, we have another question here. What are your principles for scaling a venture during an upward inflection point or a period of rapid growth?
Well, you see, scaling a venture, that is always tough because when you start off with number one employee, usually the founder. And then the founder, when you're scaling, you have to employ people, right? And therefore, that concentrated dose of the ownership attitude becomes diluted as you scale. And, introduce the principal agent problem, as I mentioned earlier, which is the difference between how owners behave and how agents of the owner do behave. So the larger they become, the more endemic the principal agent problem becomes. So if you're talking about scaling, you have to find some antidote. You have to find the antidote to the principal agent problem. So we have to train our staff to become better owners. And so what are the characteristics of a great owner, of an owner? You own your house, as an example. You own a pen, you own a phone. So what are the characteristics? Or you may own a task. We all own tasks. So what are the characteristics that are that will be the common threads between all owners? Number one, they have a responsibility for an asset, or if it's a mortgage, a liability, or a task. They have responsibility. Secondly, they have accountability to those, either the asset, liability that they own, or a task. And thirdly, owners suffer consequences if the job isn't done properly. That's the difference between an owner and an agent. Owners suffer consequences. So when you're at home, as an example, you own your home, you're responsible, you have responsibility for it, you're accountable to it, and you suffer consequences. So if you say, kids, before you leave the house, make sure you turn the stove off. And one day you're at work and you get a call that your house burned down. Who suffers the consequence? Who suffers the consequence? You are the kids. You never burned your house down. They burned their house down. So therefore it behooves you, the owner, the ultimate owner, to make sure that everybody along the chain becomes a better owner. So that we all suffer consequences right up the chain and right down the chain. And that's how we're gonna build. That's how, if you want to scale, and you want to scale in a way that is sustainable, that founder's mentality, that owner's mentality have to be something that you're conscious of in terms of who you employ, who you bring in. So you need to bring in people who are owners, diamond in the rough, or diamond in the rough owners. And therefore you have to have a methodology to polish them. So what are the characteristics of people who are diamonds in the rough. Well, they're smart and creative. So you want to make sure you're scaling, bring people in who are smart and creative. So HR, vet people for being smart and creative. Number two, they're energetic. They're hands-on. They're hardworking. They have high expectation of themselves. And they have high expectation of the organization or the team. So those are the characteristics of the people you need to bring into your organization and make sure you have a method, a plan, a course, mentorship, apprenticeship to make those diamonds, rough diamonds, beautiful, shiny, high diamonds. And also realize that success begets complacency, begets failure. You become successful. What's the natural byproduct of success? You stop doing the things that made you successful in the first place. It's human nature. And you stop doing the things that made you successful in the first place. You change the formula. You change the formula, you're going to get a different result. So success begets complacency, begets failure. So you want to scale, you have to remember that. Because the more successful you are, the more complacent you will become. And by the way, you have to think about, if you think about scaling the business, you have to think about how am I going to make sure that the last person in, that latest staff member I just hired, has the same values, standard, principles that the first one has. How am I going to make sure of that? Because the last one coming in is going to see a successful organization. They don't know what it is to starve and to have to be creative and have to make milk out of stone. They don't know that. They only come in and see a successful organization. It's just a different attitude. So scaling, you have to make sure you have a methodology to transform that last person in to be equivalent to the first person there. I don't know if I answered your question sufficiently articulate.
I think you did share, but the good thing is the person who posed that question, they've already WhatsApped me. So I have we're already in communication, and I'm sure if they want clarity, they know how to get an additional response. Right, Leron? All right. Chair, the next question is, what are the strategies being employed to grow the share value of NCB? And is there still a goal to be listed on the New York Stock Exchange?
So the strategy to build share value to NCB is make sure that dividends are reinstated, which we did on December of 2018. I became hands-on in July of 2023. And we hadn't paid a dividend for 3 years. And there's a very famous article in Jamaica, the Jamaica Observer, entitled, "I'm Not Happy." That's a Google, July the 14th, Jamaica Observer, you'll see it come up. This ugly face, Michael, it is ugly face, "I'm not happy." And I spelled out exactly why I wasn't happy. And so since then, we decided that, well, I as chairman, I said dividends are no longer an option. They are an imperative. When we're paying dividends, share price was 220. Stop paying dividends over 3 years, it drifted down to 55. Today it's about 65. So with restarting of dividend, the share price will go back up. So what's my strategy to make sure that the stock reflects the value of the business is to make sure that we manage the business so it becomes operationally excellent. How am I gonna make it operationally excellent? Starting by leading by example, starting by making it efficient, rigorous governance, and excellent customer care. Efficiency, governance, and customer experience, the best customer experience in the world. It's a people's bank. It's a people's bank, and the people deserve it. So my commitment is that I'm resolute that we're going to make the bank an institution that's the best, the most eminent student will say, let me go and study NCB to see how they did it, because this is a role model. That's the commitment. So we're going to do it by making our staff better owners to reduce the principal agent problem. And secondly, we all ask ourselves the question, what standards are we operating at? Am I operating at 9.58, which is the world 100-meter record for men's, or 40 seconds over the 100 meters? Because when you operate in a country whereby standards are not that high, it's easy to get lulled and say, well, okay, I'm less bad than the entity next to me, so I'm good. But no. That's not good enough. So what's two things? Minimize principal agent problem and standards. And once we focus on those two things, hire the right people, train them properly, make sure that our existing 2,600 staff member at NCB FG, NCB Jamaica, and 2,500 staff member at Guardian GHL, which is 5,100, we all march to the same North Star. Better owners, we take ownership, no different from how the ownership attitude we have at home. We bring it to work, we bring it to church. It's just who we are. And what standards? The highest standard, 9.58. So we are relentless on building a business that all you people in the diaspora will say, yes, I'm proud. That's how we're going to regain make the share price, make you proud of the share price.
Excellent, Chair. A question here. A statement, then a question. This person says, I've been a shareholder of NCB since I was in high school. I believe the share price then was $3 Jamaican. My late mother was so diligent in collecting the little dividend checks and depositing. Are we going back to a time of regular dividend payments?
100%. It started on December the 18th, and we paid another dividend last week, Monday, 2nd, and it's now quarterly. And it's going to be increasing. So
Amen.
the edict, the imperative is NCB is a dividend paying animal.
All right, Chairman, is NCB interested in creating a youth business incubator to teach entrepreneurship from a young age to get them thinking about wealth creation?
Yes, we don't have an incubator, but I personally mentor young entrepreneurs in Jamaica through the NCB Foundation.
Okay. All right. For those of us who are new to investing in Jamaica, how do you propose we get started? Looking for a level of granularity suitable for novices, albeit a mature novice. Stacey Bell, I'm going to take your contact information and I'll make sure me personally and a member of my team hold your hand through that process, but I'll also give the chairman an opportunity if he wanted to comment.
Well, Karrian will tell you that NCB Cap Markets is well positioned. Karrian is a head of wealth for NCB, and one of the things we're doing is repurposing an equity fund, a mutual fund in Jamaica, and we're going to call it the Chairman's Choice. And that equity fund will have securities in the fund that would meet the criteria of those 18 qualities I went through earlier. The Chairman's Choice.
All right, amen. I just shared my contact information with Stacey Bell, and she will share hers with me. All right, so that's done and dusted. Rondi, you say the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 17 encourages partnership across business sectors in an effort to strengthen growth, protect the environment and society. What are your thoughts on cross-sector partnership for the survival of businesses and our planet?
Cross-sector partnership. Well, you know, as a business owner, as any business owner, we realize we are in a competitive environment. So, yes, we're gonna compete, but there are certain things that we our attitude is we are just gonna focus on making sure that our business NCB does a great job at uplifting others, creating more Roxroy cars of the world. We have 3 million people in Jamaica. You saw the Roxroy car video. We're going to make sure that our behavior is such that we uplift 3 million Jamaicans and give them the tools to do what Roxroy did. That's our pedigree. We, as Karrian said, you can't buy that. We did it. And we did it not because we knew 22 years later, we could make a video of this successful gentleman who started off as a plumber, but because we did it because it's the right thing to do. And that is the culture that will be imbued into the culture. So Roxroy car will be part of our pedigree. And if we can do that, starting with our first concentric circle, which is what we control, which is NCB, and we can control our own behavior and our own outcomes, then we'll be a role model to other businesses to do the same. But we're not gonna be a part of a business association, and we're just gonna firstly lead by example. And if other people see and can align with the principles, then they can do the same. But we have to make sure that we mind our own shop in a way that will be exemplary and will be a role model to be as a great example in the world.
Thank you, Chair. Big up Terrian. Brown Terrian says, NCB for me always, since I have been in grade 2. Thank you, Terrian, for being a loyal customer. All right, Chair, a question here. Someone is asking, as a bank, the largest bank in Jamaica at that, will there be a time when there will be a fund established to grow the small business community? Research still shows that the barriers to access to credit in Jamaica is very high.
The bank, access to funds is has always been a challenge, and we have to do a better job at solving that problem. Because at the same time, you know, we are, the first responsibility we have as a bank is that we have to make sure depositors' funds are safe, right? But as a capital markets business, which we do have, we have more latitude as a capital markets to start funds, different types of funds, but you always have to balance that against making sure that you manage it in such a way that shareholders their capital is preserved. So a venture fund requires a very specific set of skills, and may not be most appropriate to be embedded in a banking institution. It's better off outside of a banking institution, because the venture funds are highly volatile, and you don't want the contagion of volatility in a venture fund to affect your major business. So I would not be the first person to want to embed a venture fund under the NCB group, because of the possibility or the possibility that the fund may spread contagion if it doesn't do well to the major brand, and which would be unfortunate.
Thank you, Chairman. Guys, I see the questions coming in, and that's great, because it means that we could spend all night here. It's a good sign. But what I will say to you is that any questions that have been unanswered so far, please feel free to send them to me, and I'll make sure they're answered by the right person. And if that person is the chairman, I'll ensure that I capture a response from him. Also, we will be having other events of this nature where you will have the opportunity to hear what's going on with NCP and hear, ask questions. So we are looking at deepening the engagement, as I said, with the diaspora, with our existing clients and with prospective clients. Guys, I really want to thank you for tuning in, for logging in, and for staying the entire time. I've been watching the numbers, and you guys have been riveted on this Zoom call. So it's a testament to the chairman's reputation, but also to his ability to keep people really locked in. So thank you for that very insightful presentation, Chairman. Thank you to the marketing team and all the people in the background that made this possible. And of course, a special thank you to the consulate of Jamaica based in New York, who played a key role again in disseminating emails and ensuring that our attendees and their guests were notified of this event. So yes, I see Leron saying out of many, one Jamaica. Yes, Leron, you have the right spirit there. So guys, I really thank you for tonight. And you'll be getting an exit poll before you exit, before you leave the Zoom chat. But as I said, please stay tuned. You'll be getting other emails notifying you of other virtual and in-person events. Thank you, guys.
Hold on, Karrian.
Talk to me, sir. Tell me what you're saying.
Karrian,
Yes,
we
sir.
should use this forum as a forum to create a movement. You know, there are more diaspora Jamaicans than there are actual people Jamaicans living in Jamaica. So, and our goal, all of us on this call, should say, you know what? If this call made sense, don't be selfish. And if you encourage us, we'll come back. So each person should bring another person or two or three until we infiltrate every single diaspora home so they hear what you just heard today.
People loving that, sir. We're seeing the heart emojis. And all right, well, guys, you spoke. You're speaking virtually to us. We'll answer. I see the thumbs up and the hearts. We love it, guys. And thank you for the feedback. I see people asking for the presentation. Nicole Longmore said, thank you for the presentation, quite invigorating. Susanna is asking, will there be a replay or recording of this meeting? Absolutely, Susanna, absolutely. All right. Perfect. Guys, thank you. One love. We were glad to have you here tonight.
Okay, guys. Best of luck to all of you guys. Come home soon. Later.